Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Good Wednesday to you here, November 5th, as we continue on marching through this week here. So many things happening. College football news, college basketball is going on. The first week there, we've got it all for you. NFL trade deadline has passed. We'll kind of delve into that here a bit later on. A couple of great guests for you here today. In a couple of minutes, Chapel Fowler from the State newspaper down there in Columbia, South Carolina, talking about this Clemson program and a team that right now at 3-5, scratching their heads and just, it's like the hangover that won't go away, right? Crazy what's happening with the Tigers program this year. We'll talk with Chapel, our friend back on the show. And a bit later, a newcomer here to Sports IQ, Jonah Kubicek is going to talk a little NBA as that season is now underway. The Thunder keep winning. We'll talk about that as well. He comes up here a bit later on in the show. Big news here on this Wednesday, the college football playoffs rankings out for the first time. A few surprises in this. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Alabama are the top four seeds. Would that hold? If that holds, and it won't, because these teams would eventually, if they keep winning, they'll play each other. They would get the four byes in the newly formatted 12-team playoff. Last year the byes were all reserved for conference champions, the top four conference champions. That won't be the case now, but it's simply based on merit and body of work, as it is with the basketball NCAA tournament. So again, those are the top four at the moment. Georgia at number 5, Ole Miss 6, followed by BYU, Texas Tech, Oregon, and Notre Dame coming in at number 10. The way it sets right now, only one team out of the ACC, that would be Virginia, and then the team representing the group of 5 would be Memphis, would round out the 12. That's the way it goes right now for the first round of rankings for the CFP. As we talked before, AP and coaches, they're nice for conversation. Big picture doesn't mean as much, though. This is the big one, and we'll watch how this develops as we march toward December and the real 12 teams coming up. By the way, if it did work today, just for fun, the opening round matchups would be Memphis at Georgia, Virginia at Ole Miss, Notre Dame at BYU, and Texas Tech hosting Oregon. So there you go. NFL trade deadline is now passed. And how about the Jets sending Sauce Gardner, who just signed a 4-year, $120 million deal back in July, to Indy, and Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys. Now, they receive first-round picks from the Colts in 26 and 27, 2 of those, plus a wide receiver, Adonai Mitchell. And then they also receive a 26 second round pick, a first round pick in 2027, and a defensive tackle, Mazie Smith from Dallas. So ESPN research, though, is saying that the Jets now become the first team in the common draft era, that goes back to 1967, to make multiple in-season trades to get a number 1 pick. So including Michael Gardner, that trade, that's now 3 defensive starters the Jets have traded away in a week. They're 1-7. Headed toward missing the playoffs for the 15th year in a row. And we'll talk more about this a bit later. The GM there at the Jets, he says, oh, no, we're not giving up on 2025. Really? Okay. Anyway, they're getting lots of draft picks for the future. If you're a Jets fan, that may excite you. Maybe it doesn't. We'll talk more about that here a bit later on in the show. College basketball. 24 of the top 25 AP teams have played a game this season. The last is Creighton, and the Blue Jays will finally open the season tonight as they take on South Dakota, number 23, Creighton at home there in Omaha. Last night, top-ranked Purdue was without Trey Coffin-Wren. Didn't matter. They get the big win over Evansville anyway to open their season. Number 6, Duke over Texas. Number 9, Kentucky got the win, and 10th-ranked Texas Tech opening with a victory as well. Women's college basketball, no Page, no problem. Sarah Strong, 21 points. AZ Fudd had 20 as top-ranked and defending champion UConn opened defense of its title with a 79-66 win over Louisville. The Cardinals coming in ranked 20th in the country. This was played at Annapolis, Maryland. It was scheduled to play at an air base over in Germany, but because of the government shutdown, it was moved stateside. UConn, by the way, hasn't lost a season opener since 1995. LSU, number 5 team in the country, also a winner. And a matchup between top 10 teams. How about NC State, number 9 of the country, getting the best and rallying late to knock off Tennessee at number 8 in the rankings, 80-77. Wolfpack get the win. Vandy transfer Camille Pierre with 21 points and 14 rebounds. Well, we just mentioned a moment ago that the new CFP, first CFP rankings came out, and a team that, listen, I think all of us thought would be on this when we started this season, back a couple of months ago now, is Clemson, right? I mean, they were ranked in the top five. It's Dabo Swinney. I mean, they win double digits every year. And boy, this has been a season. Look, there are programs where the wheels have fallen off in worse fashion. That's not the case here, but it certainly has not been what we thought it might be. Joining us back on the show once again, our friend, great to have him on, Chapel Fowler. He is the Clemson beat writer for the state newspaper there in South Carolina. Chapel, welcome back. Interesting fall for you, someone who covers this team on a daily basis.
Yeah, man. It's funny. I use Google Calendar pretty relentlessly to kind of keep track of stuff. And I looked yesterday and I saw that first CFP ranking show. And I was like, wow, that's something that I thought I was going to have to worry about. And now I don't at all. So that was kind of funny for you to bring that up. But yeah, man, I mean, it's been fascinating to cover just because it's been so different. It's not what I expected. And I think that makes it a more compelling season. But I mean, Dabo's presser yesterday was equally fascinating, just kind of talking about I've gotten away from my instincts. I feel like I need to get back to who I am, like some really deep, like self-reflective, introspective stuff. Like, I think if you're a Clemson fan, one positive from this total flop of a season is that it's probably going to bring about some really tangible change that was needed maybe a few years ago, arguably. But just on the field, I mean, it's hard for me to think about sometimes this team with all these expectations, with all this returning talent, not just on paper, these were guys that did it. This was the most returning production in college football per ESPN's metrics. This is a team loaded with guys that are going to be playing in the NFL next year, a lot of really talented younger guys. And it's just been a total flop across the board. They have never been able to put together a full 4 quarters of complimentary football against a good team. Their wins against Troy, UNC, and Boston College, not the best threesome right there. They basically lost to every team they've played that has a pulse. And again, that's the preseason number 4 team in the country. So it's just, it's been the opposite of what I expected, 100%.
Yeah, you put it that way. Yeah, you're exactly right. You said there's so much to unpack here. Again, the thing is, the good thing with Clemson, despite that they've held on to their coach. We've seen other teams, Penn State, LSU, which beat Clemson on opening night. I remember the pomp and circumstance with that game. I mean, I remember, they've got the drone shot following the bus around the stadium. I mean, that's how much, pomp there was with ESPN ABC for this game, and rightly so. The loss there didn't seem like a big deal, but boy, things have really gone downhill since then. And I don't just mean downhill coming down the stairs off the bus onto the field. I mean, it has really gone down. Where do we start with this? I mean, where are things gone so wrong for this program in 2025?
I think you got to start with, I don't know. We could start anywhere.
Do we have enough time?
God, I mean, I'll highlight one thing for offense and defense. I think on offense, Cade Klubnik has shown his ceiling. And I think, this is a guy that came into the year as considered like a potential number 1 draft pick and Heisman Trophy favorite. And I really just didn't buy that. I think he's a good college quarterback, but I think you've seen this year that him, even at his best, there are some limitations. I think on offense, a combination, it's him turning the ball over more than he did last year. Now, I'll give him credit. His last 2 games have been really clean. He played really well against Duke, no turnovers. And had played well before getting hurt and missing the SMU game. He played well against UNC and Boston College. But in general, the combination of him turning the ball over more and just the lack of like offensive flow. Garrett Riley, he's also in his 3rd year as offensive coordinator. That's a 3rd-year quarterback OC pairing. Usually that bodes pretty well for a college team in a sport where there's so much turnover and stuff like that. But, they've gotten away from the run game in certain games. That LSU game, like you mentioned, they've gotten away from the run game in games when they were running well, which has been even more puzzling. They've had odd play calls on 3rd down, 4th down, plays that just looking up in the press box from my very, unfootball mind view, just kind of looking at it from up top. I'm like, why did you call that in that specific moment? That's a really highly compensated coordinator and a well-paid quarterback now in the rev share era. And they've just had critical mistakes. And I think on the defensive side, it's just a lack of talent. I think Dabo, you just reading between the lines, has kind of said as much, as has Tom Allen, their first-year defensive coordinator, who kind of came in I guess late January after Penn State lost in the CFP semis, didn't really have a chance to put together the roster that he wanted, which is, the way it goes if you get hired late. But kind of the cards that he were dealt, he's told us, just the personnel's not there. I think they flopped on roster construction in a lot of ways on defense. They have a few elite guys, but there's just not enough top to bottom, first string, second string depth, especially in the secondary, where they severely needed a few portal guys. And shoot, you saw that against Duke. Dudes were riding open like all the time. I think all 4 of Mensa's touchdown passes were to guys who were untouched on those specific plays. So, just busts on busts. So, yeah, it's been a lot. And I could go into special teams too if we wanted to, probably.
like you said, there's a lot here to unpack. And I think what's shocking to me, these last 2 losses were the teams that you had a chance to beat them, right? On paper at least, you should have beat them. But they were at home. And usually Clemson, again, that's you talk about SMU, Duke, and of course LSU early on, and Syracuse. They haven't beaten. The only home win they have is against Troy. So, 0 wins against Power 4 teams. Again, another statement we didn't think we'd be making about Clemson this season.
40 consecutive home wins they had from 2016 to 2022. Think about that number, which was like the 9th longest streak in college football history, the longest since like Florida State or Nebraska in the 90s. Think about that in contrast with what you just said. Like, again, they're 0-4 against power conference teams at home this year. They're 0-6 dating back to last year. They have not beaten a power conference team at home since they beat a Virginia team that wasn't that good last year in October 2024. That is, 1-4 at home this season is just like stunning. That does not happen. For years, that did not happen. And those losses are just so deflating. Like, if you're playing in front of your home fans and you're just sucking it up like they have in so many of these games. I have never seen the bleachers more empty in the second half. Clemson still has a great crowd at every game for the most part, but people are not sticking around, and I don't blame them. They get up for kickoff. They're cheering as the team runs down the hill. They're just waiting to cheer for something. When something good does happen, they're there. Like, they want to support this team, but just over and over, especially on defense, they're just falling flat. And gosh, so they do, how they get on the field after every game? They allow the fans on the field. They call it gathering at the Paul. So the ACC tweaked that because they now have a new field storming, court storming rule. So gathering at the Paul can still happen at Clemson, but you have to wait until after the team sings the alma mater, and then you can come onto the field if you're a fan.
Okay.
So usually that's a really happy time. Fans run out, players hang out, they take pictures, they sign autographs for little kids. But 1-4 at home this season, and the one home win was a very ugly win where they were down like 16-3 at halftime to Troy. So basically, with the way this altered gathering at the Paul works, the team sings the alma mater, and then most of them just go straight to the locker room because they're pissed and they're sad, and fans come out on the field and there's like 2 guys to hang out with. So it's been weird vibes. And then 2 of the home games have had weather delays, like hour and a half long lightning delays. It has really just been a brutal home stretch specifically. I know there's a lot of fans that are ticked off at that, and maybe just, it doesn't feel like a usual Clemson home environment, and for good reason.
Yeah, no question. Talking with Chapel Fowler once again. He's a Clemson beat writer for the State newspaper. Talking about this Clemson team now 3-5, 2-4 in the ACC, and just trying to get to a bowl bid at this point. Forget about anything else. Just get a winning season for once. Worst season that we've had under Dabo. I think maybe since year 1. It's been a long time. You mentioned the word change. What change do you see is coming? Well, Dabo has been somebody that has not gone transfer portal. He's doing it his own way. It's the new way in college football. Will we see them be more active in the portal with kind of coming on to some of the changes that everyone else is doing right now in college football?
I think yes, and they have to. I think this year was built up, and I think kind of some of the offseason narrative, which was true, and I thought fair in the moment, was, hey, in this sport that's full of portal and constant change, here's a program that is stuck by its guys. Most of their guys are homegrown. They added a few transfers selectively, but this is basically a program that's built the old-fashioned way. And last year they did really well. They went 10-4. They lost to Texas in the playoff. They were competitive. So is this the year that Dabo doing it his way, still comes out on top? And I think what you've seen this season is that just can't happen. I think not only do they need to get into the portal and get some guys, they need to get like twice as many guys that they've ever gotten before. And, I think that that's probably going to be something that people above Dabo are going to be pushing for also. And I think they're going to do it. And I think he's going to do it because I think you can't look at this roster and not see the deficiencies. This is a team that needed 5 portal players additionally to what the 3 that they had like yesterday. I mean, just some of the bust at safety on the most basic like stuff they were doing in spring practice. It's unbelievable. Just like there's so many spots where another guy besides the guy that you recruited could have helped you. One of Dabo's big things, which, this is something that he stands on, a lot of other coaches don't. So credit to him. Like, he will not tell a guy to get lost. He won't essentially not pull the scholarship, but say, hey, you know what? You're not playing here. We want you to transfer. This is not the spot for you. He will not do that. He does not do that, which is, again, his conviction, what he wants to do, and credit to him. But that's led to a lot of just like not excess guys on the roster, but there's guys on the roster that really are not making a difference whatsoever and then been on the team for 3, 4, 5 years. And at another power conference program, maybe they have a conversation with the coach that is kind of a tough one where the coach says, hey, you're not going to play here. You should go somewhere else. And that happens a lot in college football. That's okay. The portal's there for a reason. Those sort of conversations don't happen at Clemson, and that's Dabo's choice, and I respect that. But I think that's added to this kind of discrepancy where there's just not enough depth on the roster. So portal's a huge thing. I'm foreseeing assistant coaching changes to come as well. I think this really needs to be a program reset of sorts. And Dabo in recent weeks and pressers is, again, between the lines, not directly saying, but he's been hinting more and more that he feels the same way.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked before earlier, in fact, this week on the show about with the Clemson program, during the heyday, the 2 coordinators you had that were there during the national championship years went on to Virginia and to Oklahoma. So, like you said, it's we talk about the head coach and whatever, but the assistant coaches and who is there and their talents really do matter in the success of a program. I want to get to, before we run out of time, the elephant in the room in terms of all the coaching carousel. Some whispers, not much, that maybe Dabo would look to leave, go elsewhere. Do you see a divorce of Dabo leaving Clemson? It feels like there's enough here to ride this out and start anew here in the offseason, but what's the buzz there in South Carolina?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think 2 years ago when they had a bit of a down year, again, that was a 9-4 season, which compared to this one feels like amazing.
Right.
But there was kind of some similar buzz. That was the year, obviously, the Alabama job came open, and Dabo was not really a true candidate for that job based on all the reporting, but at least his name was out there. Texas A&M also came open that year, and there were kind of some think pieces, suggesting what you're saying just now. Like, is this a time where maybe this has run its course? I mean, I don't doubt that there's probably like an SEC school out there that will kick the tires on Dabo. I'll plan to keep an eye on that. But all the way he's been talking, I think this is I think he's proud of what he's done at Clemson. I think he's really proud of how he's elevated that program. And I think leaving on this bad of a note would probably sit with him for a while. It's my belief and thought that he'll be the coach next year. I think, that the challenge of overhauling this roster, getting this team back on track, is one that he kind of relishes. He's been coaching for 30, 35 years, whatever it is, in some capacity. Like, this is his life, just like all these other guys. That doesn't mean I don't think there might be an interesting conversation or two at some point between an agent and an agent or something like that. And that I don't think there's going to be tough conversations between Dabo and Clemson administration on things that maybe they're pushing him to do more than vice versa. This is a situation where, he's done it his way, and this season has shown that at this point in college football, you cannot do it this way anymore. You have to adjust. You have to adapt. I think Nick Saban essentially said the same thing, kind of talking directly to Dabo on game day a few weeks ago. So I think this is going to be a fascinating offseason. Again, I don't think there will be a lack of tough conversations and maybe some disagreement between higher ups and the football staff and this and that. But I think more than anything else, he's committed to sticking this out, and everything he said publicly, which again, take with a grain of salt, that's public, not private, has indicated the same, that he's wanting to ride this out with Clemson and keep it going. He's talked about, we're going to win more championships. kind of including himself and Clemson together in that phrase.
Yeah. And I think, too, just to the point again that he is somebody who's clinging, grasping, holding on for dear life to the old way of doing things. It would be a real culture shock for him to go to an Auburn or LSU or Florida or Penn, where they are, they have giant, millions of cash ready to give out in NIL deals, those kinds of things, and they're heavy in the portal. He may need to kind of step first, like you said, into kind of the new world as it goes. And, coming up here, end of the year, Thanksgiving weekend, we thought that Clemson South Carolina game would be, maybe for a playoff bid. Now they may be playing, the two of them, playing for a bowl berth.
Unbelievable, right?
Crazy. Not the football season I know you thought about there in the Palmetto State. Well, Chappell, listen, always great to catch up with you and get your insights. We look forward to seeing where this goes, and I know we'll be talking again soon in the future.
Yeah, we'll see if Clemson can go 3-1 over its last 4 games, and that would include a win over an FCS team, which I'd expect to happen. But I mean, with this season, who knows? But yeah, it'll be fun to follow. So appreciate your time and happy to come on and chat Clemson for a while. Absolutely. And we should mention, by the way, Florida State, number 15, Louisville, up in Kentucky, home against Furman, and then at South Carolina over in Williams-Brice. So yeah, so there's nothing guaranteed here. So hang in there. Enjoy the ride, I guess. And the Louisville game is Friday night too, which just screams odd game, something weird happens. ACC Friday night games are usually a little goofy. So I'm expecting that one to be like a triple overtime game or something silly like that, on top of the fact that it's a really good Louisville team. Yeah. And it's 2025. So you know what? Why not? We expect the unexpected. Yep. Chappell, thanks so much. Take care. Thanks, man. All right. Chappell Fowler joining us once again. He's the Clemson beat writer for the State newspaper there in South Carolina. Love his insights as always. Again, Clemson trying to right the ship. They're at home. Florida State, maybe this is the one. They get the win over a Power 4 team. They're at Death Valley. Maybe. We'll find out on Saturday. All right. Much more to come here on the Sports IQ.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
On the news right now, the Braves bringing on Walt Weiss as their manager to replace Brian Snitker, who retires after a long career in the World Series title. Great job for Snit, and Weiss comes on board there in Atlanta. Shane Bieber picking up his $16 million option with Toronto for next season. The 2020 Cy Young Award winner, traded by Cleveland at the trade deadline after coming back from Tommy John surgery, made 7 starts for the Jays in the regular season, was a big part of their postseason run, including winning Game 4 of the World Series against the Dodgers. NBA, 11 games tonight, including the Spurs at the Lakers. San Antonio 5-1, coming off their first loss, trailed by as much as 31 in that loss at Phoenix on Sunday. They lost 130-118. Victor Wembanyama, just 9 points in that game, 4 of 14 shooting, also a season low, 9 rebounds. OKC 8-0 at Portland after defeating the Clippers last night, 126-107. By the way, trying to beat Portland now for the 17th consecutive time. Haven't lost to them since the 2020-2021 season. 8-0 start. That's the best since moving from Seattle. They were 7-0 last year to start off things. Last night, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 30 points, 12 assists. He sat out the fourth quarter. 18 of his points coming in the third quarter. By the way, 80 straight games now for SGA, was scoring 20 points or more. Third longest streak in NBA history. Wilt did it longer, twice. And from the sublime to the ridiculous, in Indiana, it is the defending Eastern Conference champion Pacers at 1-6, hosting the winless Brooklyn Nets. I still call them New Jersey. Brooklyn Nets. The Nets at 0-7 coming into this one. Oh boy! But hey, Thunder 8-0. Woohoo! All right, quick break right now, and then up next we'll talk more NBA on the way in just a moment here with Jonah Kubicek here on the Sports IQ.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
NBA season now up and running, and joining us now to talk more about that, Jonah Kubicek. He handles NBA writer, handles the draft, covering the Spurs, a lot of other teams. Let's talk about these Spurs right now. First off, welcome to Sports IQ. This Spurs team, Victor Wembanyama, it's funny that maybe with LeBron being injured and I don't know, Giannis still doing Giannis things, Thunder we're looking for like a new superhero, and I feel like Victor Wembanyama is that guy with the start up to.
It's rather interesting because the Spurs, aside from the last 5 years, have always been good, right? But David Robinson, Tim Duncan, even George Gervin a little bit, they weren't sexy, they weren't fun superstars. They got the job done, and then they sort of went home, and that was it. And now the Spurs have an A-list star who the league is comfortable building around for the first time.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I covered all those first championships during my CNN years. And like you said, they were steady. They were awesome. They were all world. They were champions. But a lot like San Antonio, I remember running into former Spurs at the time, like Terry Cummings and Brent Barry. And they're all just good guys. Like they love San Antonio. San Antonio loves, once a Spur, always a Spur. And they kind of came in and did their work at the office and went home. There was no flash to them. Tim Duncan's great shot was the 18-foot bank shot, right? But yeah, you're right. What is it about Wemby and his style, his personality that really do you think has just has endeared all of us to him?
Well, on the court, he's doing things that we've never seen before. And that is always going to draw people out of the woodwork, even if they aren't necessarily Spurs fans. The international appeal is certainly there. The Spurs have had foreign stars, Anna Ginobili, Tony Parker, Patty Mills, but there's sort of that French flair. He's a spokesperson for Louis Vuitton. He's signed with Nike. So he's already a sort of $1 billion brand himself, which is adding to the international markets. But locally, in San Antonio at least, he conducts himself the exact way that you would expect from a Spurs player. Team first, very much business-oriented, wants to win. So he's covering all of these bases and sort of playing all of the parts rather well.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because to me, the Spurs were the original international franchise. Tim Duncan, Virgin Islands, it's U.S. He wasn't from the mainland. Manu Ginobili, Argentina. Tony Parker from France. Oberto, Patty Mills. The list goes on. And so it's for me, I think it's maybe ironic that something that started 30 years ago under Greg Popovich, when he was beginning even when he was in the front office, has now really extended now, even though he's no longer there on the bench.
That's true, but he's still in the front office. And the Spurs, I posted on a few days ago, the Spurs, the Heat, the Lakers, and the Warriors, the only 4 teams in the league, I think, with a true defined culture that has lasted several years. The Thunder are starting to build it. The Pistons like to have their sort of gritty going to work culture, but it ebbs and flows. And the steadiness that San Antonio has offered has allowed them to remain remain relevant, if not excellent, for the better part of 30 years. Of course, they had their downturn when they were tanking for Wemby, but it seemed to all be very much intentional and very much designed within the parameters of their defined culture.
Yeah. Even, early on having Kawhi Leonard there as somebody who was not from a brand school, right? He didn't fit the mode of a superstar coming in from, a Duke or Kentucky or North Carolina, et cetera. You mentioned those teams in your reporting. Why do you think that those teams in particular have been able to build a culture and sustain it?
The Lakers are the exception to the rule. They have always been one of the best teams in the league. Again, in the late Kobe years, they had, and the post-Kobe years, they had a skid, but you can't be a 50-win team every single year for 40 years in a row. The Heat have continuity. I think Spoelstra is coming up to year 20. And Pat Riley's been there forever. The Warriors have built their culture around Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, so they're a little bit more recent on the scene, which is kind of odd to think about. And then the Lakers don't have the continuity that those other teams have, but continuity is the biggest thing when you're looking for long-term success. And you look at these, for lack of a better term, these perpetual losers, the Washington Wizards, the Charlotte Hornets, their turnover rate on the court, on the sidelines, on the bench, and even in the front office is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think, I've talked about in terms of Golden State and Steve Kerr and what they've done there with the 4 titles during his tenure. If you remember, the New York Knicks had the first shot at him. He was an analyst on TNT. He wanted what he called starter money, like $5 million a year for 5 years. And they balked at that. Like, oh, you're not even a coach. And the Warriors said, yeah, we'll pay that. And look at where the 2 franchises have gone since then.
Well, anytime you're hiring a head coach, you hope that he will be there for multiple generations of players. You hope that he will be there for 20 years. And it rarely pans out. But when teams hire someone, they have the optimism that this can be our guy to build around, build a culture with. So it makes sense that you'd be willing to take a big swing and invest a lot in him. And these owners, $5 million for them is just drop in the bucket, and the coach doesn't fall under the salary cap, so they can throw whatever they want at the coaches, and it's an investment, and most of the time it doesn't pay off. Most coaches get fired after 7 years or less, but with the Warriors it's clearly worked out, and he has some of the best job security in the league.
Yeah, talking with Jonah Kubicek, NBA writer, I should say, covering many topics here in the league as we're just getting started here with this new campaign. And I think, too, with the Warriors, not only did it pay off, if you look at what that franchise was valued 10, 12 years ago and what it's valued now, and not only that, culture has already permeated the WNBA franchise there, which Joe LaCobe also owns them. They began year one as the highest valued franchise in the W at some $450 million. Not bad for what was 3 years ago, a $50 million investment to buy into the league. So to your point, that you're exactly right. And I think too, a lot of those combinations of really the 3 great coaches of the past era, obviously Greg Popovich and what he's done, Phil Jackson, which built something in Chicago, went to LA and took that there. That helped with that culture, taking it from the Kareem Magic years on into the Kobe years, like you said, and that extends right now. And you look at Kerr, who, played for both Popovich and Jackson as well. And you mentioned Pat Riley, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, Miami is a franchise, I think, that they don't get credit for having the steady culture. If you remember, there was some, LeBron was first there, some, issues after his first year that, he wanted Spoelstra out, and Riley, as the conversation went, as I heard it, just said, I'm going to handle this, you handle basketball kind of thing. And yet he's right there as a guy who was not traditional, beginning as a video editor for the team and working his way up. But Miami has that, where some of their front office people actually began there when the franchise first started back in the 80s as like interns. And there's somebody very much a family where they like to promote within and build this culture really over several decades.
Yeah, and Udonis Haslem is sticking around with Miami. I believe Juwan Howard was sticking around with Miami before he took the Michigan job, which ended up being not the wisest career move. Dwayne Wade wanted to stick around in Miami, and then Florida sort of turned on him and his family, so he scampered off to Utah. But his loyalty with the Heat was never questioned. And it helps that Miami is a glitzy and flashy city that former players who have accumulated billions and millions of dollars want to stay in. San Antonio doesn't really have that reputation, and yet it's been able to persist. But just giving the keys to the franchise to a Steve Kerr or a Greg Popovich or a Pat Riley and letting them build their own track record. Of course, Riley already had a track record of success before he got to Florida, but sort of letting them do what they want to do and just hoping it works out. And when it does work out, you have success even after those figures are gone.
Yeah. And you mentioned, too, that Oklahoma City, again, the same thing with their owner, Clay Bennett, with Sam Presti being there. I was really shocked during the playoffs that I didn't realize he had been there 17 years now.
And he's only like 19 years old, it seems.
Exactly. Yeah. Not a gray hair to be seen. At least,
Mhm.
it's covering it well. You're exactly right. But yeah, this Thunder franchise right now, once again, to your point, jumping in right now and picking up where they left off, they seem like, again, not only a team primed to repeat, but a team to really be the next dynasty with the way that they've built this. And to your point, the culture they have there. They've got a bunch of guys who seem very comfortable in their own skin and the way they all fit together.
Yeah, with the way the new collective bargaining agreement is structured, they have SGA tied up to the max. They've given Chet Holmgren the max. They've given Jalen Williams the max. Will Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso and Lou Dort and Mitchell, who's breaking out this year, all of these players, are they going to be willing to take a bit of a pay cut to stay in Oklahoma City? When you're winning, it maybe, but if things hit a skid or God forbid SGA tears his Achilles and they have a down year for a season, are people going to start demanding trades? Loyalty is going to be tested in Oklahoma City in the next 2 or 3 years. And if anyone can weather that storm, I think it's going to be Presti. And even if he can't, they have the draft picks to replace all of these players anyway. So the Thunder are not going anywhere. 20 years ago, if you said Oklahoma City would be the model of NBA success, people would question that because they didn't have a team. But they've been relevant since the Kevin Durant years. They've been relevant since Russell Westbrook was there. They had their one down year or 2 down years, sort of right after Chris Paul left. But Chris Paul was their bridge player who showed SGA and the young guys the ropes, and now they're sort of reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah, there's no question. Like you said, they've got enough pieces, and clearly they're very savvy in the front office to be able to make some moves if they see where there may be somebody they need and somebody who may be leaving and put this together. They hold all the cards, right? And so they can be very choosy in terms of who they include to be a part of this and continue on. And they're all so young. Like you said, that's the thing is that, SGA and Chet Holmgren, like mid-20s? I mean, they have another 10, 12 years that they can play at a high level. We've talked about these teams, obviously Warriors, Lakers, Spurs, Heat, and now the Thunder. What is another team out there that you see that's kind of positioning itself to be that kind of franchise? Maybe they're building the base now to kind of be the next team that could be have a very stable and successful culture.
Well, building a culture takes a long time, and it's easy for once the culture is established for it to go away. So establishing it over a long period of time is by far the hardest part. I like the Pacers for that, though. Tyrese Halliburton is the face of the franchise. He's young. He's one of the best point guards in the league. They've built out a good supporting cast. Even though Pascal Siakam's going to age out of that role in the next few years, he's already proven that he can be a valuable veteran. Rick Carlisle is a proven coach. He's a proven winner. They aren't eager. That ownership group is not eager to spend, which hurt them with Miles Turner, and it hurt them well before that. They're going to have to open up their pocketbooks. They own the Fever as well, so they'll probably have similar issues there down the road, depending on how Caitlin Clark's supporting cast pans out. But I think the Pacers would be a good pick. The Knicks are always in the media, not necessarily for the best reasons. If Mike Brown can stick around, I know he's on a bit of a short leash just based on the pressures that they're feeling. But if he can stick around, I think that might be a good long-term play for New York, although it's very hard to have faith in that franchise based on their more ebbs than anything else recently. And then I also look at teams like Dallas, Phoenix, New Orleans as the complete opposite. Culture crushers, I guess. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, Dallas looked like the model NBA franchise.
Yeah.
Jason Kidd was a very good coach. Kyrie Irving had finally bought into being the second option. Luka Doncic was probably the best player in the world. And now they're staring down, missing the playoffs for the second year in a row. Matt Ishbia in Phoenix can't seem to get out of his own way. They had Chris Paul still in his prime, and then they flipped him for Bradley Beal. That didn't work out so well. The Pelicans have not won a game yet this season, and it's hard to see them ever winning again. I think Zion Williamson is out for the next 10 days with either a hamstring or a hip injury. And they don't have any draft picks. So it's very easy to be the GM of a team when you don't have any resources to work with.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Zion is somebody that I hate to label a player as a bust. He still is still very young, but personally, I've never felt he was going to be that guy in the NBA. And now I just think just the injuries. I'm just at this point, at least Anthony Davis has done something. He's injured a lot, but when he's there, he's a real difference maker. It just feels like Zion. I don't know if he'll ever be that player that we hoped he could be in the NBA.
Before Davis was given the injury-prone label, he was one of the best. He was probably the best two-way power forward in the league, and he didn't really get a lot of injuries start to pile up until I believe he was 27 or 28. So he had 6 or 7 years in the league to prove that he's a star. Williamson has not proven much of anything. When he's on the court, he's an all-NBA player, but when he's only playing 25 games a year, you can't build around that. With Davis, there's the hope that maybe he'll stay healthy for 70 games. With Williamson, there's just very little hope surrounding that team, which is unfortunate. And I can't stand when fans advocate for relocation of a franchise. I think that it's horrible to do that to a city. But with the Pelicans, they rank last in attendance. They don't have any sort of success to boast about historically or recently. It's just, you kind of have to wonder, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And you have that star player to sell tickets. I mean, Atlanta has Trae Young. It's Luka's now with LA, Kawhi with the Clippers, Jokic with Denver. Like you said, there's not that guy that I'm going to go see that alpha play. You don't have that. Your alpha is injured 2/3 of the year.
You go to the Pelicans games when the Warriors are in town.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Jonah, listen, it is great to welcome to Sports IQ. Hopefully you'll join us again and talk more NBA. We are big hoop fans here. And so we appreciate getting your insights here, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Once again, Jonah joining us, Jonah Kubicek. He's an NBA writer joining us now, talking a lot about the draft, Spurs, but obviously has his thumb on the pulse right now as this league is getting started here in the new 2025-26 season. Lots more to come here on the Sports IQ. Stay with us.
My muscles ached. I was tired all the time.
My son had a full-blown asthma attack. It came out of nowhere.
The unsettling thing about some symptoms is
a fever, headaches.
You don't always know what's causing them.
It was Lyme disease from a tick bite.
A reaction triggered by cockroach allergens.
I had West Nile virus from a mosquito.
Threats to your health can come from unexpected places. Mosquitoes, ticks, and cockroaches can make you sick. Get the facts. Visit pestworld.org.
All right, producer Tony joining us right now. Tony, draft deadline has come and gone. We heard earlier talking about a little bit of a breakdown there with our expert. I want to get your thoughts. Who was the big winner in this draft season that we just saw?
I really like the way the Colts went at it. I give the Colts credit. They realized they've got a once in a generational chance here. They've still got a 7-2 record. Yeah, it was kind of a bad week against the Steelers Sunday, but they're coming back, picking up Sauce Gardner for a couple of draft picks. I think that's a great move on their part. Will solidify at least part of that defense on the back end. They still got some work to do in the front end with the trade deadline now passed. They're going to have to do that internally, but they can still find a way to get that done. And I think they turn out to be one of the winners here. I really wasn't sure, Larry, what Dallas was trying to accomplish. You're sitting at 3-5-1. I mean, bless Jerry Jones' heart. I don't know. Maybe he thinks he's making a run this year. I don't know. He kept telling us 4 weeks ago that he still thought they were the team to beat in the NFC. So I don't know what is happening down in Dallas or what they're putting in the water, but he's having some sort of dreams out there in Dallas.
Yeah, that defense is 31st in the league. As we mentioned yesterday, the only team worse is Cincinnati, where Logan Wilson came from, and they weren't playing him much. So, I mean, I guess he helps you. I don't know. I really liked what Jacksonville did. Travis Hunter is out at least 3 more weeks with that injury. They go get Jacoby Meyer, who was unhappy with the Raiders out in Las Vegas, just played against him last week and bring him in. Now, you get a quality wideout now to fill that role while Hunter is on the mend.
Yeah, you've got another target there for Trevor Lawrence to throw to. Keeps the offense balanced because, you've still got Thomas on the other side. You've got, you've got Jacoby Myers now. You've still got the running back position is solid. So you've managed to balance out that offense somewhat for the Jags. And, they're having a decent season. So you want to continue that momentum. That was the best way to do it. I like teams that went out and filled holes, the last couple of days. Disappointed the Packers didn't make a move to kind of pick up something to fill the tight end hole left by Tucker Kraft, tearing his ACL, going to miss the rest of the season. The Bills had a chance to pick up another weapon for Josh Allen. They passed. They didn't make any moves at the deadline. And, I'll give a shout out to the Chargers. You lose Joe Alt for the season, but at least you went out and picked up backup tackle from the Saints, who at least can come in and help maybe solidify your offense. I don't think the Chargers are going to make the playoffs. I know they're in a good spot right now, but boy, you lose 2 tackles in the NFL, especially guys as good as Slater and Alt.
Yeah, you're
going to struggle offensively.
Yeah, that's tough. We were talking in the break about winners and losers. You're quick to point out the Jets and whatever they're doing. Jets do what Jets do, I guess.
Bless your heart if you're a Jets fan. You deserve a lot of credit to stick by this team because the last 2 decades have been just a continual roller coaster of we're making some moves, we're going to get better, we're going to compete, and it fails, and we release everybody and trade everybody and start all over again. And we get a little bit better, and we start climbing up the roller coaster, and the wheels fall off again. And we're back in that cycle of the wheels falling off. They haven't had an offense all season, despite having Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, because the quarterback play has just been atrocious. They took a flyer on Fields. He's still not an NFL caliber starter, in my opinion. And, so you've had trouble on offense. You at least had the defense you could rely on. Now you trade Quinnen Williams to Dallas. Good pickup for Dallas. I'm not sure where they're going with it this year, but a good pickup. And, you trade Sauce Gardner to the Colts. So now you're not going to be able to stop anybody, and you're probably not going to be able to score. That's a bad combination in the NFL in my book. I don't know what league it works well in, but it doesn't work in the NFL.
Exactly.
So you have one win. I'm not sure the Jets win another game this season. I think they're staring at 1-16 square in the face at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty tough when you think about it. The other team, the Bengals, we mentioned again, the dead last in defense. We mentioned on Monday, again another loss where your offense gives you 30 points and you still lose the game. And to lose it just in spectacular fashion with a safety linebacker, whoever that guy was, who didn't try to wrap up the big tight end who caught that pass, just trying to get a first down, get into field goal range. He did that, but because you refused to tackle him and just kind of hit him with your shoulder, he went in for the touchdown, and you guys lose the game. That's one where maybe you trading Logan Wilson, maybe the beginning of this dismantling, you kind of realize maybe that let's kind of begin to look to the future because didn't matter who's at quarterback. Joe Flacco had a career day. Right. He has a Super Bowl ring. He's 40. He had a bad shoulder. He threw for more yards in a game than he'd ever thrown in his nearly 2-decade-old career, and yet you still lose. So you can't, it's not the quarterback play. You can't blame it on Jake Browning because Joe Burrow's out. Joe Flacco came in and got it done for you. The defense still couldn't. Maybe it's time to begin to look forward to next year, and maybe, Zach Taylor's on the hot seat now.
Yeah, I believe he is, and I'm shocked that they held on to Trey Hendrickson. I don't know what they were asking. I read online that they were asking for the moon for Trey Hendrickson, but you've got this piece. He no longer wants to be there. He's going to try to leave if he can at the end of the season. You franchise tagged him, got him in. I think they gave him a contract extension, but he's going to ask to be traded again at the end of the season. Yeah. So I don't know what you're going to do in Cincinnati. Flacco has been really good for them since coming over from Cleveland. He's stable, and they still can't win. Yeah. Because the defense isn't doing anything at all. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe if the Cincinnati and the Jets combine, if they could have kept Sauce and Quinnen, the Jets will provide the defense. Cincinnati, you provide the offense.
Yeah.
The other two will go play. They'll go 0-17, but at least this team might have had a chance to compete for the playoffs.
Exactly right. It wasn't at the trade deadline, but one winner in this season has been Joe Flacco. You can guarantee he will be on a roster somewhere next year with the way he played this year. All right, Tony, great stuff. Stay with us. Our moment of awe. We'll finish up the show. Is up next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. 800-215-0341. That's 800-215-0341.
Time now for a moment of awe, and it actually happened late Monday night. Boise State basketball, just consistent, 20 wins year in, year out, but they were stunned in their opener by a Division II school Monday night. Hawaii Pacific, a school you probably didn't even realize existed. They get the win over the Broncos, 79-78 in Boise, by the way. Just a shocking win. Hawaii Pacific out of Division II. Boise State, there's no net rankings for teams outside Division I, but look, this will be on the resume come NCAA tournament time. And so the committee will see that they fell by one to a Division II team. We'll see if it makes a difference. All right. That's our show for today. Thanks so much to Chapel Fowler. Thanks as well to Jonah Kubicek. Be sure to join us tomorrow. We'll talk women's hoops with Isabella Gonzalez, and the great Danny Sheridan is still on the way this week as well. You got to come back. Make it a great day in the Sports IQ. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.